If you take Ozempic, it's going to cause cancer and have just pounds of muscle come off your body. Well, that's a hot debate right now in the fitness industry. Is it myth or fact? Well, I'm going to give you all the inside information on Ozempic and other GLP-1 drugs. So stick around to the end of the video to gain some knowledge. What's good, everyone? Coach D here with the Shift Method Personal Training. Coming to y'all with second video, part 2, the final part of our series here on GLP-1 drugs, Ozempic, Wegovy, all the GLP-1s, and what do they do, right? The first video that I did, which I'll link down below, basically we had a general overview of what these drugs are, kind of how they work on your body, and of course comparing some studies about, their effectiveness in isolation and of course in combination with diet and exercise. What we're going to do today is we're going to cover a couple of things, and this is kind of more so in the mainstream of fitness culture and just the media in general about what are some of their side effects, and of course some big myth versus fact in terms of what the side effects of these GLP-1 like drugs are. Because some of it can be quite concerning and quite scary, but I'm here to break down the information in a digestible way for you as someone taking them, someone thinking to take them, or as a coach if you're working with clients or want to work with clients who are taking these medications. And of course, I'm going to give some tips at the end for how you can start your fitness regimen, or for my coaches, how you can ultimately start working with a client taking these drugs so you feel that you're giving them a safe and effective program, and of course, giving them proper dietary guidelines that are going to help support their goals. And of course, if y'all enjoyed this video, y'all know the deal. Please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. It really helps out the channel, helps out, as Dr. Lane Norton says, the algorithm gods. We really, really appreciate that. So let's go ahead and jump into the video here. Okay, so first thing we got to talk about is side effects. Well, of course, the number one side effect of these GLP-1 drugs is that you die. No, of course, that's not what happens, right? That is kind of the fear-mongering that you may see on social media, is that these things are just going to cause horrible, horrible side effects to you, and that you shouldn't take them, and that the juice isn't worth the squeeze. And while there are no biological free lunches by any means for just about any medication, they do have a pretty safe profile in terms of side effects. And these drugs have been around for decades. And so we know, relatively speaking, in most cases, what they're going to do to the body. Now, of course, there are going to be some general outliers that can happen with anyone. The example I use with outliers is kind of like smoking, where I'm sure we all know a family member, a grandma or grandpa, they've been smoking all their life, and they have perfectly working lungs, heart, everything. And they may say, see, there's nothing wrong with smoking. I'm 90-some years old and I smoke every day, multiple packs a day. Shut up, you pansy. What we know, though, is that you are an outlier, right? That's not exactly what happens. And the same thing goes for any medication. While you are going to have some outliers that are going to occur, what we're going to see with these side effects for the medications for these GLP-1 drugs is that they're pretty minimal and not super, super harmful for your body. And they're going to be pretty common of what you would see with a lot of other medications out there that you may already be taking, or that your clients may be taking as well. And so I'm here to help break down kind of that stigma and hopefully bring some ease of mind to y'all about these drugs. So some of the more common ones are, in general, gastrointestinal pain, meaning that you're going to have maybe some nausea, some diarrhea, maybe a little bit of vomiting, right? And this is usually if you take maybe too high of a dose, or maybe the first couple times you take it, it might feel very uncomfortable for you, and that it might just upset your stomach. Obviously, if you're taking an injection, which is majority of them, you may have a little discomfort or irritation at the injection site, but hopefully you get used to that. There is, of course, the risk of an allergic reaction to that. But again, most of the time you are dealing with just some abdominal pain or just some gastrointestinal pain in general. The other main side effect that people have, and this sometimes is just getting the dosing right, is that people have a severe lack of hunger. Like I mentioned in video 1, one of the main things this drug does is it works on your brain to not make you feel hungry. So there's a good chance you take too much of the medication, or just as you're getting used to it, you may not feel hungry relatively at all, and you may not want to eat, which of course, that goes kind of the other extreme of things, where you go from eating too much and now you're dealing with obesity to now you feel like I have trouble eating like a meal a day. And so while that is a concern, again, relatively high safety profile. The side effects are pretty minimal, and you don't have to worry too much as long as you consult your doctor and make sure they're safe and effective for you. And let's say you are concerned about even these side effects, or maybe some other ones that you've heard online. You know what has a lot of major side effects? Obesity, right? We know that obesity has basically a huge negative impact on every part of your body, which is going to be your cardiovascular system, your brain health, your general activities of daily living, your bone health, your muscle health. Pretty much every single aspect of your body is impacted by obesity. And again, go back to the example I used with smoking cigarettes, right? Yes, there are some people that do have a healthy level of obesity where, hell, their BMI might be 35, 40, and they live to be 90 years old and they're relatively fine throughout their entire life. But those are outliers again, right? Where most of the time, if you have or are dealing with obesity or your client is, long term, that's going to lead to negative metabolic and health outcomes in general. And so having clients work with these drugs in combination with the diet and exercise regimen is going to ultimately be better for them on the average. Okay, now kind of talking about the side effect, there's two main myths that I want to address here. The first one is that Ozempic or any kind of GLP-1 drug is going to lead to medullary thyroid cancer. This is one that has been kind of gaining popularity, and, to give the devil his due, it is true. On these medications, you are going to see a black box label warning saying that it can lead to thyroid cancer, especially if you have a family history. But anytime this information comes out, it's always important to see where did this study kind of come from and how are these conclusions reached. And so what we look at, which I'm going to put a link to the study below and you can kind of see it here, is that this study was actually done in rodents. Why is that important? Obviously, you do studies on mice in general first because somewhat similar physiology and biology, but there's a key difference with humans and with mice, and that is mice just so happen to have a very high density of GLP-1 receptors on their thyroid, which, when given high doses, can lead to tumors forming on their thyroid, leading to thyroid cancer. Shocker. But when you look at people, most people do not have these receptors, or they have a very low density of them. And so while it may impact rodents in a certain way, which is, of course, cause for concern because that's where you should investigate, it doesn't seem to happen with people. Now, of course, if you have a family history or you yourself have dealt with thyroid cancer, this is definitely something you want to talk with your doctor about because maybe you are a candidate where further discussion needs to happen. But what we see is that because this aspect of our physiology is quite different from mice, it's kind of like comparing apples to oranges. And so I would say that this is kind of a little bit of a straw man argument that this is going to automatically cause you to get cancer if you take this drug, because we found in high doses of mice that it causes it. And again, you know what does cause cancer? Obesity, right? So having obesity long-term can lead to various forms of cancer, right? It puts your body in a prothrombotic, pro-inflammatory state, which ultimately is kind of a hotbed for having cancer develop in your body. And so let's say there is even a slight risk of it, right? We end up finding out with more research on this subject, going deeper, even though this drug has been around, or these drugs have been around for a very long time. Well, which is going to cause maybe cancer more likely, along with a lot of other issues for your body? I'm going to gamble and say obesity is probably the more dangerous of the two. Okay, and the second myth, common side effect that is claimed, is that Ozempic or other GLP-1-like drugs are just going to take off pounds and pounds of muscle from your body. And if you look in some studies like the one I link here, they show that if you look at a list of trials or a grouping of trials where they look at over 2,000 participants, it's true that pre and post testing, they had a 25% decrease of what they call lean mass on their body. Now you first hear that, you're like, holy crap, they lost 25% of their muscle? Again, this is misleading because lean mass does not mean just muscle. Lean mass is anything that is not body fat. This means water. This means any kind of tissue, any kind of bone. Anything that is not fat can be classified as lean mass, which again, water being a very big component of that. So that is something to consider as well. So this is another straw man where they're showing that, yes, people are losing weight, but most of it is muscle mass. It's not. Most of it is what's considered lean mass, a good portion of it coming from most likely water in the body. And when we look at other studies too, where people go on a calorie restriction, we see that they lose anywhere between 10 and 23% of their lean mass pre and post dietary intervention. So if you go on a calorie restriction, you're losing your lean mass. If you go on the drug, you're losing your lean mass. Either way, you're losing lean mass. But again, it's not like you're shredding off all your body's muscle. You're probably just losing a little bit of body fat, water. And of course, if you're not doing any resistance training, you have a low protein diet, yes, you might lose some muscle mass in that case. But predominantly, it's going to be a lot of body fat and water. And the thing to know too, if you're someone dealing with obesity, chances are if you're sedentary and quite inactive, you probably don't have much muscle mass on you anyway. So it wouldn't be cutting out that much. So as long as you are having a good diet where you have high protein, which we're going to talk about in a little bit here, and you're exercising regularly, you're probably actually going to gain some muscle mass. And the lean mass you're losing is going to be from water. And then you're just going to lose some body fat, which of course is like the ultimate goal that we're trying to do in any exercise program, right? So no, you're not just going to lose all or what little muscle you have. Probably just going to lose some water and body fat. Just make sure you got the diet and the exercise dialed in. We even have some studies, which I'm going to link here, showing that when you do a combination of GLP-1 medication, diet, and exercise, that you can actually have decreased body fat, decreased total weight, and of course an increase in muscle mass, which like I said is what you're ultimately aiming for. This 48-week long study here showed that participants lost between 6 to 10% of their total body weight, and they lost about 10% of their body fat mass while gaining 3.6% muscle mass. So again, they're losing weight, their body fat is going down, and their muscle mass is going up. All benefits. So that just kind of puts a little exclamation point on, showing that that is more of a myth that you're just going to lose all your muscle mass. Nope. If you got your diet and exercise dialed in while complementing these drugs, you're probably going to gain some muscle mass along the way. Okay, so now that we kind of got the myths and the facts organized here, what is my coaching recommendation? Obviously, always consult with your doctor. I'm not a doctor. I'm just a coach here. But having a background in working with clients with obesity and working towards getting more experience with these clients and getting more understanding of these GLP-1 drugs, yes, it seems to be a very safe and effective method of weight loss when combined with exercise and diet and making sure they are good medically cleared to deal with the potential little side effects that these drugs bring. Recommendation-wise, what we see in some of the research is that anywhere between 0.5 and 0.7 grams per pound of body weight seems like a relatively good amount of protein to get while they're working towards losing weight and using these GLP-1 drugs. Another way that you can think about it too is you can do about 0.8 to 1 gram per pound of ideal body weight. So for example, if you're someone who weighs 200 pounds and your goal is to get to 150 pounds, you can eat anywhere from about 130 to 150 grams of protein per day. That should be a safe and effective tool. As long as you got a high protein content while you're taking the drug, it seems to be quite protective against losing all your muscle mass. And from an exercise standpoint, ideally trying to hit all major muscle groups, lifting weights twice, ideally, or working up to 3 times a week. So that way you can really work on strengthening your muscles, your bones, your tendons and ligaments, and of course, improving your metabolic health and working on your insulin sensitivity. And of course, doing some aerobic exercise. I generally recommend doing low intensity steady state exercise first, where your intensity is at a low to moderate pace, where you're not killing yourself on the cardio, you're not doing Stairmaster for 60 minutes, you're not doing sprints, on the treadmill. You're doing something that gets your heart rate up, it gets your breathing up a little bit, but by no means is it max effort. Starting with maybe somewhere between 15 to 30 minutes per exercise bout, and gradually adding about 5 to 10 minutes per session every single week. And then eventually, after a couple of weeks, you can start increasing the intensity. And once you feel comfortable with that, and you've got a good base of your conditioning, you can start layering in some light intervals like a incline walk and a flat walk, or a light jog and a walk. Something that gets your heart rate up a little bit more intermittently than doing the steady state training. And that's it, everyone. I hope y'all enjoyed this video. Again, leave a comment down below if you're someone who is taking a GLP-1 drug, or if you're a coach working with a client who is taking these medications. If you got any questions for me, I'd be happy to answer those in the comments down below. As always, please be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Check the socials, join the newsletter, all the good stuff. And if you're interested in coaching, you can head to theshiftmethod.org. Click any of those take action buttons. I can work with you in person here in Boca Raton at Johnny O's Gym, or virtually anywhere in the world. And as always, I'll see y'all in the next one. Later.